All right, today we're diving into a topic that's pretty rare, but so important to know about, because knowing the signs could literally save a life. We're going to break down something called Fournier's gangrene, a serious medical emergency, using some great information from the Cleveland Clinic.
So let's just get straight to the point. What are we actually talking about when we say a flesh-eating infection of the genitals? Well, that's exactly what Fournier's gangrene is. It's a type of necrotizing fasciitis, which is the medical term for a flesh-eating disease, and it specifically targets the genital area.
So, to get a little more specific, this is a bacterial infection that moves with terrifying speed. It doesn't just stay on the skin, it goes deep and destroys the soft tissue underneath. And let me be clear, this is not something you can wait out or hope gets better on its own. It is a true life-or-death emergency.
And because it is such a serious emergency, the very first thing we have to talk about are the warning signs. You know, knowing what to look for is absolutely everything in a situation like this.
Okay, this is so critical to understand. The things you might see on the surface, like the skin changing color, sudden swelling, or really bad pain, they're actually signals of a much deeper problem. If you have those signs, plus a fever and just that feeling of being really sick, those aren't just red flags. They are blaring sirens telling you something is seriously wrong underneath the skin.
And this right here, this is the most important message in this whole explainer. There is absolutely no wait and see with these symptoms. The medical advice is crystal clear. A delay of even a few hours can be the difference between life and death. You have to get to an ER. Immediately. Now, before we go any further, I want to put this into perspective so nobody panics. This condition is incredibly rare. We're talking fewer than 2 cases for every 100,000 males, and it's even less common in females. So the goal here is awareness, not alarm.
Okay, so you might be wondering, how does something this destructive happen so fast? It seems to come out of nowhere. Let's pull back the curtain and see exactly what's happening inside the body. This really breaks it down perfectly. It starts with something so simple. Bacteria getting in through maybe a tiny cut or some other minor infection. But they don't hang out on the surface. They dive deep. And here's the game changer. They attack the arteries in the area, which cuts off the blood supply. Once the blood stops flowing, the tissue dies, and that's when the infection just takes off like wildfire, spreading fast. So if this is caused by pretty common bacteria, why isn't this happening to everyone all the time? Well, it turns out that certain health conditions can make a person much more vulnerable. Let's take a look at who's most at risk.
First off, there is a major difference between the sexes here. For every 1 case in a female, there are about 10 cases in males. So men are about 10 times more likely to develop this.
And this table really tells the story. You can see a common theme running through all these risk factors. The single biggest one is diabetes, especially if it's not well controlled. But look at the rest: heart disease, obesity, smoking. What do they all have in common? They weaken the body's 2 main lines of defense: a strong immune system and healthy blood flow. Without those, it's like leaving the door wide open for bacteria to take over.
Now that we know the signs and the risks, let's talk about treatment. And just like with spotting the symptoms, the theme here is speed. It is an absolute race against the clock where every single second counts. And let's be crystal clear about this. Antibiotics by themselves are not enough to fix this, not even close. The only way to stop the infection is to physically go in and remove all the dead and infected tissue. That means emergency surgery isn't just an option, it's the absolute, non-negotiable first step.
So the path to recovery is, well, it's a journey. It all kicks off with that emergency surgery. It's called debridement, and it often takes multiple operations to get everything. While that's happening, patients are also getting hit with some very powerful antibiotics. After that comes intense, advanced wound care to keep everything clean so it can heal. And then, way down the road, once the infection is totally gone, reconstructive surgery might be an option.
And it's really important to have realistic expectations about the timeline here. This is not something you just bounce back from in a few days. A hospital stay of 3 to 6 weeks is pretty standard, and that's often followed by an even longer recovery at home. It's a tough, challenging process. Wow, that all sounds incredibly intense, I know. So what can you actually do? Let's talk about the most empowering part of all this, your best defense, which is all about prevention and just understanding the risks. This list right here outlines the most powerful steps you can take. And does it look familiar? It should, because it all comes back to managing those risk factors we just talked about. Getting your blood sugar under control if you have diabetes,
keeping a healthy weight, quitting smoking. These things aren't just good for your overall health. They are absolutely critical for lowering your risk of an infection like this. And of course, good hygiene and taking care of any cuts are key too.
Okay, let's just clear up two really common questions people have. First, is this an STI? The answer is a hard no. It's not sexually transmitted. You cannot catch it from or give it to a partner. Second, is it caused by poor hygiene? Well, it's a bit more complicated. Poor hygiene doesn't directly cause it, but it can definitely increase your risk by creating the perfect environment for bacteria to grow. And that really brings us to our final and, I think, most important question. For a threat that is this rare but also this deadly, is there any better defense than simply being aware? Knowing the symptoms, understanding the risks, and respecting the urgency. That knowledge isn't just helpful, it's everything. It truly is your best defense.